can, make the community better. Like, so legal stuff. Let's talk about legal stuff. In the United States, you have something called the Constitution. The Constitution restricts the government. The Constitution's job is to restrict the government and to protect your rights. You have something called the Bill of Rights, which were amendments to the Constitution to really, really super give you a good deal and restrict what the government could do, because governments have such a history of screwing people over and over and over and over again throughout history. So what are some things in the Constitution? And these are very important things to know. And these things are so important to know that federal officers, such as Gary Gensler, the chairman of the SEC, you can go on the internet and you can search Gary Gensler's confirmation hearing, and you're going to see him swear an oath to the Constitution of the United States of America to defend it against enemies, both foreign and domestic. Now, you might ask yourself, what is a domestic enemy? What is a domestic enemy of the Constitution? I wonder. So the Constitution has something called the First Amendment. The First Amendment is freedom of speech, freedom of the press. Government shall make no law against free talking and all that stuff, right? Well, it turns out that Gary Gensler and the Securities Exchange Commission is actually doing a lot in violation of their oath. It turns out that they're violating a lot of what the Constitution is supposed to be protected from. So the Constitution says you have a right to freedom of movement, a right to freedom of association, a right to freedom of speech. There's other legal doctrines like the right to contract, which, if you interfere with other people's contracts as tortious interference, you can get sued for it. It can cost you money. You have a whole bunch of rights in there, right? And then there's things that are like even harsher violations. So if you're going to violate people's free speech, one of the worst ways to do that is with something called prior restraint, where you don't even give them the chance to speak. Well, listen to this. Blockchain networks are communication networks. They carry speech. The first Bitcoin block carried a copy of a newspaper article. Blockchain networks are speech. And the software that consists of blockchain networks, the nodes, the wallets, those are just word processing assistants. They just help you format your speech in a way that other participants can understand. So when you try and interfere with the blockchain, you're interfering with communication. You're interfering with communications network. You are performing prior restraint. Your interference in these things is creating a chilling effect. You're interfering with people's association. You are interfering with people's right to contract with each other. You're interfering with specific contracts. You are doing numerous, multiple things in violation of your oath to protect the Constitution. You're doing it outside of congressional authority. You're doing it outside of your mandate. So I don't understand how America became the carceral state. America has the highest rate of incarceration of any nation that's ever existed in the history of mankind. And yet you see very few lawsuits against people in the government. It just doesn't seem to match up to me. If you have extremely high rates of the government putting people in prison, shouldn't you have also high rates of some of the people being put in prison kind of suing the government for violating their rights? I mean, you go around the world and you can't even in some countries get 20 years for murder, but in the United States, they hand out time like it's candy. You can get 20 years very easily for doing lots of different things. Very easy to get 20 years in the United States. Very hard to get 20 years anywhere else. Isn't that cruel and unusual? By the way, Bill of Rights has a rule against cruel and unusual punishment. Shouldn't there be more lawsuits over this? Isn't it cruel and unusual that for things that aren't murder, you're getting what the entire rest of the world considers to be murder punishments? And I think even in the United States, you see crimes that just, you're going to get punished harder for nonviolent crimes than violent crimes in a lot of instances. Doesn't make any sense. Or like meta crime that doesn't even have a victim. These things are like, they're not healthy. They're not good. And it's how you end up with the highest rate of incarceration in the history of mankind. So do you really have the rights you're not willing to fight for? Probably not. So you got to fight for these rights. And it's just tragic because so few people have the funding or the ability to stand up to the blowback to fight for your rights. I mean, when the ex-president of the United States is having lawfare used against him so that he can't run for office, that's what they do in the third world. The people in power use the executive branch and the police to make it so that no one can run against them, so they just keep winning. That's not good for democracy, guys. It's really not. You're supposed to have free and fair elections where people are allowed to choose between different parties, and you're not supposed to, once again, this is just like prior restraint. You're not supposed to, before they can run, make sure they can't run, because how can you have a fair election when the people that you want to unelect are in control of who gets to run against them? It doesn't make sense. And then, if you give the government this power that they shouldn't have, at some point you'll get a bad team in charge, and that bad team will abuse that power. And so traditionally, the founding fathers figured it out, that there should be checks and balances. You shouldn't just rely on one person being good for everything to work out. You should assume that occasionally someone's going to suck, some bad guy's going to get power, and you should have a checks and balance. So, the legislative branch is supposed to write the law. The executive branch is supposed to execute it. The judicial branch is supposed to, be in the middle, making sure that everything works right between the two. Right now, the administrative state, a fourth branch of government that's not supposed to exist, of unelected bureaucrats, is writing all the laws, encumbering millions of people with regulations, and there's no counterplay. Your counterplay is to sue them in court and get them declared arbitrary and capricious. So, how many times recently has the SEC been declared arbitrary and capricious? Numerous times. Numerous. So in the Ripple case, the judge basically said that the SEC lawyers were not performing with a faithful allegiance to the law and were just changing their story based on, getting whatever they wanted. The SEC just recently, their lawyers were lying in a case, and the judge caught them in the lies and said, well, now that you've been caught in these lies, explain to me why I shouldn't sanction you and fine you directly. Fine the SEC lawyer that was lying to the court. And then you see all of his bosses at the SEC jump in there like, we're sorry, Your Honor. Please don't fine us, bro. Don't sanction us, bro. We're going to retrain everybody. And so I will let you guys know where to find these specific documents. This is only a couple days old. The SEC. So then you see this guy's bosses at the SEC throwing him under the bus and throwing junior guys under the bus, if I remember correctly, and then talking about how they're going to retrain all their litigators and how they're getting rid of that guy and they're putting in new guys. And you're like, hey, you know what? You wouldn't have all these problems if you just didn't lie to the judge. So you don't need to train your guys on how to not lie to the judge. And this isn't the only thing, right? The SEC has lost 4 of their last 5 cases in front of the Supreme Court. Gary Gensler likes to go on television speaking outside of his capacity of the SEC. So he'll go in interviews with people and say that he's not speaking on behalf of the SEC. Well, buddy, that means you're speaking on behalf of yourself, which means it's actionable. Okay, you are speaking on behalf of yourself, and you are moving markets, and you are manipulating markets. You, Gary Gensler, are manipulating markets outside of your authority at the SEC, which means you are personally responsible. You hear me hedging the heck out of my language because I don't want to catch a case. Not financial advice, do your own research, no forward-looking statements. But you, buddy, you're on record teaching at MIT saying that 75% of tokens are not securities, and then you get a job, you got your round trip, you got your revolving door, you got your 16 years at Goldman Sachs, but now you get to regulate Goldman Sachs. That's a good round trip you got there, buddy. You get to defend all your friends that you make all your money with. Hey, where's all your money, Gary? It's with all your friends that you're helping out by screwing the competitors, right? So in Gary's world, and by the way, so I would love to see Gary Gensler catch a charge for his manipulating markets with his speech outside of his capacity at the SEC. I would love to see him catch a charge for violating his oath. I'd love to see people suing him directly because people don't understand. When the SEC attempts to call something a security, it's like calling hugging, punching, and arresting parents for beating up their kids. It is disgusting. It is a violation of due process. It is a violation of equal protection. People that speak to each other using the blockchain deserve the same rights as people that speak to each other using pens and paper, non-digitally, analog. They should have the same protection of people that use the mail. They should have the same protection of people that use the telephone. So there's so many things going wrong right now. And it's just going to cost millions and millions of dollars to fix it. And I think you could reduce the amount of millions spent if there was some personal responsibility. I think if people were held personally responsible for what they're doing, right? So if you're a guard in a jail and you violate someone's rights, you can be sued around your qualified immunity. If you decide to go outside of your authority and outside of your qualified immunity protection to make statements that damage markets, maybe you should be held personally responsible for that. Maybe you should answer to the court for that. If you say things like, we want to lose more cases because if you're not bringing enough cases, if you're not losing cases, you're not bringing enough. Gary Gensler's on the record saying that. Gary Gensler's on the record in Congress under oath saying that there's a gap in the legislation where they can't regulate exchanges because they're crypto exchanges, not securities exchanges. And then, not so long later, he goes, was I lying then or was I lying now? I don't know, but my story sure has changed. Now we actually have everything we need. Just come in and register, even though they've been sued by Coinbase via writ of mandamus. And then the SEC finally responded after delaying and said, oh yeah, actually we're not going to make any rules. The whole rest of the world's making rules. Japan's making rules. Singapore's making rules. There's new exchange licenses. XRP just got licensed as a money transmitter. VASP, value service, whatever the heck, I don't remember, virtual asset service provider in Ireland. Coinbase just got virtual asset service provider in France, I think. The whole rest of the world's figured it out, And then there more bad stuff, right? Gary Gensler loses the XRP case. Now, look, is it him specifically? No. But I think he's on the commission of guys that has to vote for what actually gets sued, right? So I think there's 5 people on the commission. And you need 3 of 5. And if you get 3 of 5, then they can bring an action against somebody. I think that's how it works. Not an expert, not a lawyer. So 3 of 5 guys, and by the way, you see dissenting opinions all the time, right? So Hester Pierce is a commissioner. She's always dissenting. She's dissented in the Stoner Cats case. She's dissented in a bunch of cases. She's going to tell you what we're doing is wrong. This stuff that the SEC is doing is wrong. And she's on the board. She's in the commission, right? She's one of the 5 people that gets to vote on these things. And there's another guy, I think his name's Udaya, that is commonly dissenting with her these days. Now, why am I telling you guys about this stuff? Because these are your rights. I don't live in the United States. I haven't lived in the United States for decades. These are your rights. These are your problems. These people are screwing you. You need to do something about it. So the things that I'm telling you that are obviously true, for instance, you can't custody cryptocurrency. I'll give you an example. The IRS is trying to make some law where anybody that could have known about a transaction now has compelled speech and has to gather data on other people, which will be hacked and stolen by Chinese hackers and Russian hackers, but they're just idiots, right? It's just like the SEC themselves. They in their own annual letter declare that they can't find experts to work on crypto because they all own crypto and don't want to sell it. And so then they're not allowed to hire people that own crypto. Okay, well, maybe you guys have a bad setup, or stop sucking, right? Just stop sucking, guys. If you don't have the expertise to regulate a thing, it's better to do no harm first, right? Like the Hippocrates law that doctors follow, do no harm first. Yeah, Gary Gensler was making meetings with Sam Bankman-Fried, his buddy, right? His Democrat, Gary Gensler was the treasurer for Hillary Clinton's Democratic campaign for president. He's as political as you can get, I think. Here he is meeting with, Sam Bankman-Fried, who sent tons of money to Democratic, politicians. You got, was it Maxine Waters blowing Sam Bankman-Fried a kiss? Yeah, guys, good one. But you're not going to give the creditors back that money they donated, are you? FTX went bankrupt. Sam Bankman-Fried stole the money, but you politicians aren't going to give back that money that he gave to you that he stole, are you? No, you're not. Why? You might not be good people. You just might not be good people. Now, not to say that not giving, like, there's some law that covers them so they don't have to give it back or whatever, but that's not what makes you bad. You violating people's rights is what makes you bad, right? I remember COVID. I remember you guys violating everyone's right to move, violating their freedom of movement. I remember you house arresting people. I remember you guys doing that. It was disgusting. I remember you guys now, trying to claim that crypto is used to support Hamas and saying like 60 million, and then you go check the numbers and it's like 800K. What's going on here, guys? Why do you keep lying? Stop lying. Literally just stop lying. So the arguments that I have that are obviously true, that cryptocurrencies are communications networks that might have Rule 210 protections for safe harbor, that might have protections for freedom of speech, freedom of contract, freedom of association, protection against prior restraint. These arguments aren't getting used. They're just not, which is so stupid to me. These are communications networks among peers. It couldn't be any more obvious. This is speech. We are transmitting text. We are transmitting messages. We are transmitting numbers. We are transmitting pictures. We are transmitting art. We are transmitting audio. This is a communications network amongst peers. This is speech. This is speech as speech gets. Right? So the idea that the people just aren't using these arguments is very stupid, because if you lose a case, you can't bring up new evidence in the appeal. So you have to cover everything in your first case. So if you're leaving arguments on the table and not making them a first case, you're not going to be able to bring them up on appeal. Huge mistake, huge error. So if you guys out there that are lawyers that are submitting amicus briefs or filing motions to intervene, you need to be covering your First Amendment, 10th Amendment, due process, equal protection, latches, waiver. Google these words if you don't know what they mean. Like latches and waiver basically cover, you could have brought this action earlier and the defendant would have had a better job, a better ability to defend themselves, but you chose not to. And therefore you might have waived your right to enforce. And then in other cases, I mean, we've seen crypto cases where it was even over the statute of limitations, and then they just ate a judgment anyway, or like the statute of limitations was up. Like what? Why didn't you get good counsel, and why didn't you argue that the statute was up? Like what? Crypto. It's an industry run by clowns and idiots that won't listen. If you guys would listen to me, you wouldn't have lost money in BlockFi. You wouldn't have lost money in Celsius. You wouldn't have lost money in Gemini Earn. What a fake Bitcoin maximalist, right? Look at the Winklevi twins. Yeah, you guys are real Bitcoin maximalists when you're doing the opposite and taking people's private keys from them and giving it to a counterparty, and then all of you getting wrecked together. How stupid are you guys? You guys are idiots. Or how about this one, right? Censorship resistant network. People are putting JPEGs on the Bitcoin network, and the Bitcoin people hate this. They killed it with counterparty and made the op return code size too small for counterparty to operate way back when. Even Tether used to operate only on the Bitcoin network. So USDT used to operate on Keller Coins, which was on the Bitcoin network. And then they stopped doing it because the fees sucked and the features sucked. And so they moved over to primarily EVM networks now, which Ethereum was the first one. The E in EVM stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine. So like Pulse Chain's an EVM network. So you have this. So Jack, who was at the helm of Twitter when they were helping the United States government violate your rights to freedom of speech by the government themselves giving them lists of people to silence and de-amplify and ban because they talked about COVID or Joe Biden's laptop or his son Hunter Biden's laptop full of pictures of him smoking crack and getting down with hookers. And by the way, the idea that Joe Biden's kid gets a bunch of jobs in Ukraine with no qualifications and a bunch of money from China and Ukraine, and then writes his dad checks and pays for dad's cell phone bill. Man, you're busted, bro. In the carceral state of America, where nearly anything's a crime and nearly anything gets you 20 years, Joe Biden, I got bad news for you, buddy. It ain't looking good for you, man. Why is your kid writing you checks? And why does he have jobs in countries that we're sending billions of dollars to. What's that? Like, what? Stop. Dude, no, don't. Like, oh, America, man. I left America, what, 2003? 20 years ago. I left America 20 years ago, and yet here I am spending my days doing legal research to try and make America a better place. Sucks for me, bro. Sucks for me. Left 20 years ago, didn't get any of that free helicopter money, didn't get any free money checks, didn't get any loans that I didn't pay back, any of that crap that everyone else in America apparently got. Yeah, but here I am, still trying to make it a better place because my people. I care about my people. That's why I'm doing a Christmas video for you guys. And, you know, that's why I give you so many things away for free. I care. Free book, t.me/Scivive, SCIVIVE. 2 free books there. Free coins, paulschain.com. Hex.com. What else? There's so many things I like. Let me tell you how smart I am, okay? You could have claimed Hex.com. You could have minted Hex for free during the first year. You could have minted it for free. Boy, that Richard, he's a smart guy. The Mt. Gox hacker, the Silk Road hacker, the Chinese government that took all the Bitcoin away from the Plus token Ponzi, that caused the pump, like, I don't even remember what year it was. None of those guys can mint free Hex because there was a timer on it. You could only count it for the first 365 days. Mt. Gox, sorry guys, you don't get any free Hex. So awesome. And actually, the Gox addresses were just removed. So even if they had made it before the timer, they were just not allowed to anyway. What a good design. What a better design. Instead of getting your head dumped on by the government. The government took the Silk Road hackers' coins. He's going to dump them on you. The government took the Bitfinex hackers' coins. He's going to dump them on you. The government took FTX's coins. They're going to dump them on you. You guys love giving the government your coins to dump them on you, don't you? You love it. You just can't get enough of it. But Richard Hart design stuff doesn't have this problem. Yay. Well done, Mr. Hart. Yeah. So I think I have a very high degree of certainty that you're going to see these constitutional arguments, prior restraint, freedom of association, freedom of speech, Rule 210, safe harbor protections. There's a wide, equal protection, due process, guys violating their rights, guys lying to the court. I think you're going to see these come up. I think you're going to see these come up in SEC cases. If you don't see them in amicus, you're going to see them in motions to intervene. You're going to see these. You're going to see these arguments. They're going to be happening. And then the courts are going to have to decide them. And here's the funny thing. Sometimes you get a judge, and it's a good, honest judge. Understand stuff, right? So, for instance, in the Coinbase case, they got Judge Fiala. And Judge Fiala also got a class action lawsuit against Uniswap. And she rejected it and dismissed the case because she was like, no, Uniswap isn't a securities exchange. And the founders of Uniswap and the people that designed the software are not supposed to have, you can't pretend that they're an exchange and they owe you some due diligence and all this crap. So she understands automated market makers. She understands Uniswap. And that's the judge in the Coinbase case. So, that's awesome, right? Like, she ruled correctly in a class action lawsuit against Coinbase. She's therefore, maybe will rule correctly in the Coinbase case. Maybe they'll win on their motion for judgment on the pleadings, just similar to motion to dismiss. It depends on what judge you get and how much due diligence they want to put in. And there's a lot of cases out there, right? Like, you've got the case against the tornado guys. You've got the IRS. I guess that comment period's over, but you've got now the OFAC Treasury comment period regarding trying to make all mixers illegal, which is the dumbest thing ever. Like, hey guys, Here's the Fourth Amendment. It says you have a right to privacy. Here's the United Nations, human rights thing that everyone like signed off on, that we believe that these are the rights humans should have, and privacy is one of them. Freedom of movement's one of them too. But then you go make all these laws that are the opposite of it. You can't say that people have a right to privacy and then do everything you can to violate their privacy. It's not consistent. It doesn't make sense. You're violating the Constitution. Please stop. And they're just doing it all over the place. And people aren't fighting back. Like, you can't have a functioning... Human beings are not designed to operate well in non-private environments. That's why we wear clothes. That's why we close our blinds. That's why we lock our doors. That's why we don't share our toothbrushes. Like, human beings function well when they have privacy. They do not function well without it. And it's crazy to me that these people, if you can call them that, keep trying to violate everybody's rights over and over and over and over and over again. It's enough. Like, please let us be free. Please. The founding fathers fought and died for our freedom. Many Americans have fought and died for our freedom. Can we please have our freedom? Pretty please? You guys should go get real jobs, producing things that people want, goods and services people want. If you're just removing people's freedom all day, there's a chance you're not helping society. There's a chance you're hurting society. So, unfortunate. All right. So, you lawyers out there, you need to cover your First Amendment, equal protection, free speech, freedom of contract. There's a whole lot of things that you're not using that you're going to wish you'd used if you have to go to appeal. And it would be nice to have the precedent set. What else? Oh, I made like a little list. Let's hit the list. Oh yeah, cryptocurrency is awesome, right? They keep printing money out of thin air. Prices are all-time highs. Crypto solves that, right? Like, cryptocurrency is still the best performing asset that has ever existed in the history of mankind. Very cool. It has better uptime. It has better resilience. It has better robustness. It has better durability. It has better price performance. It has better features. Cryptocurrency is awesome. The freedom to transact underlies all other rights. So if you don't have the right to transact with people, which is something that the founding fathers assumed everyone would have, right? They paid people directly. There wasn't all these stupid intermediaries. If you don't have that, you don't have the right, you don't have the freedom of movement if you can't pay for your bus ticket. You don't have the freedom of speech if you can't buy an internet connection or send a letter. You need to be able to transact to use any of your other rights. Without the freedom to transact, you don't have any other rights. Man, I covered a lot of stuff on this list. That's good. Oh, the SEC custodying coins. Okay, I'll cover that. So the two things I see on the list that I didn't cover are, one, the Securities and Exchange Commission is custodying cryptocurrency right now via their comment section. With 100% certainty, the Securities and Exchange Commission of the United States has received cryptocurrency in the form of, this is by their definition. By my definition, the real one, you cannot even custody cryptocurrency. You can't. It's impossible. But by their definition, the wrong one, knowing the seed words means that you've received an airdrop you have to pay tax on. So I can tell you with 100% certainty that both the Securities Exchange Commission and the IRS Treasury have both received seed words that have money in them to Bitcoin, and they've both received time-locked Bitcoin. Both. And they've both received the Uniswap code. So they're hosting for public display the Uniswap code for exchanging cryptocurrencies, time-locked Bitcoin, and the seed words to them, and not time-locked Bitcoin and the seed words to them. And they can't even know what else those seed words control because it's not knowable because of the halting problem, which states that you can't know whether code will eventually halt or not until you eventually run it. And by that same token, you can't know what derivation paths hold private keys which match values on public blockchain networks, because you don't know what derivation path is being used, and you don't know how far down that derivation path you'd have to go to exhaust all the possibility of keys that might control things. I don't think it's knowable. Therefore, their concept of what hosting an exchange is, or what requires you to know your customer, or what a customer is, or what custody is, should all be invalidated by proof by absurdity, right? Because if their stupid rules that they're trying to make made any sense, or were true, then they're all guilty and they all owe tax right now. So anybody that works at the SEC that read that comment that had those seed words now has dominion and control and should owe tax now, right? By your guys' rules. Well, guys, did you register as a securities exchange? Did you register as a custodian? The SEC is trying to pretend that every cryptocurrency is a... I didn't explain this harshly enough, and I should do that now. The Securities and Exchange Commission is violating their oath by becoming a domestic enemy of the Constitution that they are supposed to fight against. They are becoming a domestic enemy of the Constitution, and they are trying to classify hugging as punching and trying to arrest parents. That's an analogy. They're trying to classify speech as securities. They're trying to classify entering a block and communicating publicly with everyone. If it were true, if it's true that you can't trade securities without a securities exchange, then it's also likely true that you can't pay someone to include your speech in a block, because the only method by which these networks allow you to include your speech in a block nearly primarily or nearly entirely is by paying a fee to be included in the block in the native currency. Well, they're trying to undo all that. They're trying to make it so that you can't speak, because they're trying to pretend that your speech is a security. That's a violation of their oath. That's a violation of the Constitution. That's a violation of your rights. That's a violation of due process. You're not allowed to play pretend. You're not allowed to pretend that hugging is punching and arresting parents. You're not allowed to pretend that speech is a security. Speech is not a security. Speech is speech. You can turn anything into a security if you want to. You can turn an orange into a security. You can turn an orange tree into a security. You can turn anything into a security. But that doesn't mean that they are securities. An orange is an orange. It's not a security unless you work really hard to make it so, by including an investment contract. So you buying a coin and using that coin to purchase speech on a distributed peer-to-peer open source network, that's speech, man. That's as speech gets. So the concept that you're going to de facto ban cryptocurrency around the jurisdiction of the legislative branch is also a violation of the separation of powers doctrine. It's also a violation of the non-delegation doctrine. Google these things. What they're doing is illegal, and they should be held personally responsible for it. And they are acting outside of qualified immunity, I might add. Some of it might be covered under qualified immunity. A lot of it shouldn't be. And they should be held personally responsible. And I would like to see someone from every state of the union sue these people for the rights of yours that they're violating. They have addresses, and they've got a lot of money, and they should be sued for what they're doing. Let the courts decide whether what they did was okay. Avail yourself of your ability to petition the court for your wrongness, the wrong that's been done to you. Wrongness wasn't the right word. The harms that you've suffered. So it's sad that we live in a world with so little personal responsibility, that unelected bureaucrats that have hundreds of millions of dollars that they've received working for people that have received billions of dollars of fine. Goldman Sachs has gotten so many fines, so many, along with so many other giant entities that these scumbags are protecting. They're violating your rights to protect people that want to also violate your rights. It's gross. It's disgusting. It's tragic. There's few things in the world that are trying to return the power to the people, as the founding fathers did. Who out there is working for your right to communicate with your fellow man? Who out there is working for your right to be able to save money without it being debased? Who out there is working for your right to your freedom to transact, which underpins all the other rights that you're supposed to have. Cryptocurrency is one of the few industries in the world really trying to return power to the people and introduce efficiency into extremely inefficient systems. And it's just, how can Gary Gensler support Bitcoin as though it were an immaculate conception that had a fact pattern that nothing else could ever possibly have? He speaks out of both sides of his mouth. He does everything he can to make sure that the ETFs never happen, never passes any rules, doesn't respond to Congress, is being threatened with subpoena by Congress, who is supposed to be his overseer, worked for the people that he's supposed to be regulating, and he's now choosing winners and losers in the technology sector, and the winner that he chose sucks. Bitcoin is not supposed to cost $9 to send. It's supposed to have larger blocks. It's supposed to have more features. Bitcoin sucks, guys. It's not good. It has a lot of liquidity, and some billionaires are buying it. Fabulous. But other than that, it's trash. It's not good software. It doesn't have a good roadmap. It doesn't have good developers. Oh yeah, Jack that ran Twitter while censoring people on behalf of the government in violation of the Constitution, now funded a pool for Bitcoin miners that was censoring JPEG transactions and was designed by an idiot, one of the few blockchain developers to get hacked for his coins. What? Why? Jack, you're an idiot. Jack, you're an idiot, and your beard looks stupid. I didn't like what you did at Twitter. It was disgusting. And now I don't like what you're doing with your stupid pool. Stop being an idiot. Jack, you're an idiot. You don't have to be an idiot. Watch my live streams. I'll educate you, okay? I'm good at crypto. You're bad at crypto. I'm good at free speech. You're bad at free speech. You suck, Jack. You suck. God, what's his name? Luke Jr. Luke Jr., you suck. You're terrible, okay? Like, it's just, Here's the good news. Pulse chain is working perfectly. Hex is working perfectly. You've got all the tools you need to make the world a better place. You are the network. You guys, somebody made these bots. Somebody's made some fiat on-ramps. Somebody's made lending. Like, good job, guys. Keep being the change that you wish to see in the world. Keep creating. Keep working. Look, I've been in Bitcoin since it was 50 cents. I bought it at 30. It went down to 2. My introduction to crypto, more or less, was 95% drop. And now it's 43K. Okay, so I was mining at 50 cents. Now it's $43,000. That's an 86,000x. That's not bad, right? There's going to be volatility. There's going to be ups and downs. You have the tools that you need to create great things. You really, really do. You have something better than Bitcoin will ever be. Now, you have something now that is better than Bitcoin will ever be. That's enough, man. That is enough. You have what you need to create greatness. And I think you're going to see regulatory clarity coming up. I wouldn't be surprised to see Coinbase win their case. Their legal filings sound awesome, right? That response to the complaint that they wrote was beautiful, really well written, worth reading more than once. So those guys did a great job. And then, you'll probably see good arguments in the Kraken case. And they've also got a lot of amicus briefs from other people as well. Some are okay. So I think you're going to get regulatory clarity, and I would love to see personal responsibility from individuals acting outside of their qualified immunity to violate your rights, your right to associate, your right to transact, your right to speak. It's disgusting, and they should be held personally responsible if the courts allow it. And you don't know unless you try. You really don't know unless you try. Yeah. So that's it. Merry Christmas, everybody. I hope that let's see how long this video was. I hope that this 1 hour and 22-minute video is enough for you guys out there. I hope you enjoy it. And, look, you're the network. If you want to see something amazing, you need to make it happen. If people are willing to buy coins that are down all the time, or, pictures, JPEG coins or whatever, maybe it's more, getting the word out that needs to be done. Maybe that's what makes the world a better place. if things are going to get better, you're going to make them better. I believe in you guys. Merry Christmas, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.